perplexing how some people are still not convinced that climate change is a dire issue. With all the evidence stacked against them, some still persist in going against science. Somehow it seems pretty real when wildfires are burning down homes. It seems pretty real when glaciers are melting, effectively killing the animals that rely on them. Somehow it seems pretty real when areas of our planet are getting flooded foot after foot, destroying everything that someone had worked decades to achieve. If you're still not sure if climate change is an urgent issue, let me try and change your mind. Let's start at the root of what climate change actually is and why it happens. Merriam-Webster defines climate change as significant and long-lasting changes in the Earth's climate and weather patterns. As we can observe by just going outside and comparing statistics, this has absolutely been happening as far back as 100 years, and we are seeing the effects of it in our environment now. Climate change occurs because of changes in the Earth's balance. These changes in balance are caused by external factors that influence the environment in some way, like greenhouse gases. Because of our greenhouse gas levels rising, our CO2 levels are also rising, which has been very closely linked to our planet's temperatures rising in studies done. Therefore, when looking at what climate change is, we can see a direct connection between our CO2 levels and how this is clearly climate change. The issues that we have now are mostly rooted from the Industrial Revolution and afterwards. The Earth Institute of Columbia stated, "Today, CO2 levels are 40% higher than they were before the Industrial Revolution began." This shows how the effects of burning fossil fuels, oils, and coal all throughout the Industrial Revolution, long after and still to this day, are having huge impacts on our climate. We are continuing this trend, and some people do not even realize they are doing it. I do it, you do it, everyone creates emissions somehow. But this is why we must change as a whole population, slowly eliminating the things that we can replace with less emissions, such as furnaces and cars. Not only do Americans seem to be ignoring this, but they also seem to have no regard for how their actions affect this issue. Just in the last 4 years, our government has dismantled the Clean Power Plan, which was a plan put in place to limit greenhouse gas emissions from power plants. Trump's Environmental Protection Agency has proposed that oil and gas companies are no longer required to monitor methane leaks in their equipment, a super pollutant that is harmful to our environment. In November of 2019, the Trump administration withdrew from the Paris Agreement on climate change. This is an international treaty addressing climate change, and as of now has 188 out of 197 parties are in it. The Trump administration is taking the exact opposite direction than we need to be going in. According to the World Resources Institute, nearly 70% of Americans, including most Republicans, want the United States to take an aggressive approach in tackling the climate crisis. The government is not only failing to follow through with that of what the American populace wants for our environment, but needs to survive. It may not seem like a big deal to loosen a few regulations on coal and methane here and there, but these are the types of thoughts and actions that make or break our future. Pulling out of the Paris Agreement has not only damaging effects on America, but the other 188 parties as well dedicated to fixing what we have done. The US is number 2 in the top 20 countries that use the most carbon emissions, according to the Union of Concerned Scientists, which has effects internationally. Yet the United States has dropped out of that agreement between countries, clearly having no regard for the Earth's future and other countries involved. Us as Americans cannot stand by and let this happen. Whether we make choices in our own personal lives to work on climate change or demand that we have true climate changers in office, we need to have a better outlook on our futures. This isn't something that will change overnight, and I won't pretend that it is. It's something that is going to take time and hard work, and some are not going to like it, but it's what has to be done. This cannot be something people ignore any longer. We must stop using greenhouse gases immediately, and realistically, we will not see the positive effects of this for a very long time. According to NASA, even if we stop emitting greenhouse gases today, global warming will continue to happen for at least several more decades, if not centuries. We may see the effects of our work in our life. We may not see the effects of our work in our lifetime, but we need to do it for the next generation and the one to come after that. If not for yourself, change for your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. This is the only way we can preserve our planet and solidify that in 100 years we will have a planet to heal. This is not something that we need to act on soon. This is not something that we should act on in 20 years. This is an issue that should have been acted on years ago. The time is now to change. Scientists say that we have 10 years before the effects of climate change are irreversible. 10 years. We have 10 years to change our behavior and right the wrongs that we have done to our planet. You may be thinking, what I do doesn't matter, but it does. Every single thing that you do for our planet is something that you are doing for your niece, your grandson, or your daughter's future. And you can start today. You can help just through daily activities and making minor changes to your life. Switch to energy-efficient light bulbs. Wash your clothes in cold water. Switch your cars and stoves from gas to electric. In saying this, I understand that not everybody has the money to get a new stove at the drop of a hat, but you don't have to change everything about your life in one day. We need to change the world one step at a time, and although this is an urgent issue, we cannot be expected to be entirely electric tomorrow. Start with carpooling. Maybe next time one of us needs to trade our car in, we choose a hybrid chargeable car instead. Maybe when next time we run out of light bulbs, we can buy a pack of energy-saving ones. Energy-saving light bulbs actually save us money in the long run by lasting longer. These minor changes to your daily life don't have to be negative and can make your life much better in the long run. Although changing what we do personally will not reverse or heal everything we have done, it's a start and a decision every individual must make personally for our fellow neighbor and community. Once again, us taking personal responsibility is just a start, and someday we must make big companies and people in power take responsibility for the major impact they have on emissions. According to The Guardian, Chevron, Exxon, BP, and Shell are all American companies that are behind more than 10% of the world's carbon emissions since 1965. That is 10% of the world's carbon emissions. These big companies use endless amounts of carbon emissions in product production and gas, and must take accountability for it. Fortune magazine explains that 100 companies have been responsible for about 71% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. It is imperative that our government and our world as a whole unite to prevent these companies from single-handedly destroying our planet with no regard for the working man's opinion. This is not something that we need to prepare for. This is something that has been happening now. According to The New Yorker, California's fire season is 75 more days than it was 20 years ago. Florida's hurricane season, which usually runs through June to November, has started early for the past 6 years, beginning in May. USA Today states that melting permafrost caused a fuel tank holding 21,000 tons of diesel oil to collapse in Russia's Arctic Circle, leading a 135 square oil spill. Things will only get worse from here, and soon there may be nowhere safe to go, which is why we must understand the consequences of ignoring Earth's cries for help. This is a pivotal time for our world, a time where change is not an option. Our future depends on us and us only. We need to take full responsibility for what we are doing to our planet, because every change matters. I am asking you to be a part of the change that we must make, because it is the only way that we will make it through this time.